Hello everyone, and welcome back to Wicked Reading. Today I will be reading SCP-1447, Tulpa. Object Class, Keter. Although current containment measures and the speeds at which SCP-1447-1 typically move make close observation impossible, initial recovery and -1's numerous breach attempts have substantiated eyewitness reports of its appearance. -1 is a quasi-physical humanoid entity resembling an Asian male in traditional Tibetan Buddhist monastic garb. Its face is visually distorted and indistinct, even when viewed on high-speed footage. -1 typically remains in constant motion, frequently in excess of 200 kilometers per hour, for approximately 20 hours a day, which time is chiefly spent attacking the interior of its cell. Reinforcing -1's containment unit with hardened steel plating has been successful in reducing the incidence of breaches, but has not proven totally immune to -1's efforts. -1 is very capable of exploiting small breaches in its containment unit, and is able to insert itself through apertures as small as 200 micrometers in diameter. -1 is largely resistant to standard-issue sidearms. Higher caliber munitions appear to temporarily disrupt -1's physical form, causing it distress, and have been effective at forcing it back into containment. High explosives have proven effective at completely dissipating -1. However, when attacked in this manner, -1 has shown the capacity to rematerialize anywhere in the immediate vicinity, ignoring any intervening barriers. Furthermore, during Breach 1447-05, -1 apparently goaded security personnel into employing explosives near the containment area of SCP, resulting in an additional breach event. Attempts at communication with the entity to determine sentience remain inconclusive. Although -1 responds to questions, its vocalizations are largely unintelligible. Analysis has revealed them to be garbled versions of mantras in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, repeated hundreds of times a second. -1 is not implacably hostile to human life and remains focused on reaching and killing SCP-1447-2. However, Foundation personnel who attempt to impede its progress are subject to attack, and if frustrated in its efforts, it has been observed to become indiscriminately violent. -2 is a 50-year-old Caucasian male who claims to be a computer hardware and software entrepreneur of some note. -2 has been unable to explain the continued activity in the public eye of his namesake, a figure who shares -2's alleged identity and life history, but has speculated that he may be an imposter hired by his business associates. His counterpart is to be kept under surveillance by Foundation personnel, as another possibility is that either -2 or his counterpart is an entity similar to -1. Recovery Log 1447. -2 claims that a lamasery allegedly located in Qinghai Province, China, provided him with the location of Site 73 and arrived there on seeking sanctuary from what he described as a tulpa. 2 days later, Site 73 came under repeated attack by -1, resulting in the deaths of 2 agents. -2 was evacuated via plane and the attacks immediately ceased. -2 was transported to London and subsequently moved to Site 60. -1 took under 3 weeks to locate the site, again attempting to breach its security and gain access to -2. On-site personnel were ultimately able to funnel the entity in an early version of its current containment unit, at a significant cost in terms of expended human and material resources. Addendum 1447-01. -2 has been informed of the death of his counterpart. He requested a full medical checkup, which was granted. Tissue and hair samples taken from -2 show no anomalous characteristics. -2 remains convinced that he will be successful in the destruction of -1 through the application of methods of concentration and meditative practice. Successful breaches have indicated no change in the capabilities of -1 to date. However, it is noteworthy that the entity's activity within its containment unit is severely curtailed during periods in which -2 engages in focused meditation on the abolition of the Tulpa. Thermal imaging reveals that -1 is almost completely still during these periods, adopting the Vajra meditation position. Foundation consultants versed in the Tibetan Buddhist faith have posted that -1 may be sufficiently sentient to be able to meditate on its own existence, thus reasserting itself. Addendum 1447-02. Proposals are under consideration to incorporate means of disrupting -1's meditation into its containment unit. The incorporation of a hydrochloric bath similar to that employed in the containment of other Keter-class SCPs is currently considered too likely to lead to a breach via the delivery mechanism. Other possibilities include microwave emitters to heat the interior of the unit and high-volume sonics proven to inhibit concentration. Current theories indicate that the death of -2 at the hands of -1 or otherwise is unlikely to result in the destruction of the Tulpa given its current level of autonomy. Controlled infliction of pain on -2 shows no corresponding change in behavior on the part of -1. However, -1 is currently containable largely by the virtue of the fact that it constantly seeks out and attempts to kill -2. Freed from this compulsion, the entity would become completely unpredictable. For the foreseeable future, containment efforts must focus on further reducing the incidence of breach attempts and minimizing the exposure of other Foundation assets to -1. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-1447-1's current containment unit comprises an airtight 2.5 meters by 2.5 meters by 2.5 meters concrete container reinforced with 6 centimeters ablative steel plating and suspended within Bay 4. The cell exterior is to be inspected daily and any damage reported immediately. Dented or otherwise structurally compromised plating is to be patched. A reserve or replacement steel plate of the appropriate gauge is to be maintained at 30 square meters. Discovery of any hole or crack in the plating should be considered a breach of containment, and -2's quarters are to be immediately secured. SCP-1447-2 is confined to his quarters, the location of which relative to -1's containment unit has been selected to minimize possible interaction between -1 and other Euclid and Keter-class SCPs, as well as incorporating blast-proof screens and choke points to be employed in the event of a breach. Reasonable requests from -2 may be granted with the exception of any item which could facilitate external communication. -2 may be consulted by maintenance staff on issues relevant to his primary area of expertise. However, following Containment Breach 1447-01, -2 is no longer granted freedom of the facility. -2 is to spend at least 4 hours a day meditating on the following topics. -1 is getting weaker. -1 is dying. -1 is unable to maintain physical form. Any qualified practitioners of Tibetan Buddhism on site are instructed to participate in these sessions. Topics which could imply a containment breach such as SCP-1447-1 is going away. -1 is being reabsorbed into my mind, or similar, are not to be employed. Failure by -2 to comply with this procedure is punishable by removal of requested items and privileges.